I've recently asked you guys in a poll whether or not you would be interested to see some videos where I react to your LEGO Star Wars or Lord of the Rings hot takes, and since the majority of you said yes to both or one of the two, here we are. I gathered the best hot takes from the two community posts for this video, and with that, welcome to the first episode of LEGO Lord of the Rings hot takes. But before I start, I just want to say that if you want to see this series continue and be a part of a potential next episode, please feel free to write your own hot take down below so I can use it in the next video. But now let's stop wasting time and get straight into the first hot take. And the first take is already pretty insane, cause Logan6Q6BF says, hot take that Sauron figure is trash. Now while the LEGO minifig isn't perfect, I have to disagree with this take. In my opinion, Sauron is one of the best Lord of the Rings minifigures that we currently have, and most of it is pretty much a perfect transition from the character to the LEGO minifig style. I guess the only point of criticism that you could bring up is Sauron's height, and yeah, he is a little short compared to in-universe, and some long legs might have helped, but I'm personally not a big fan of the long leg piece, since it looks a little weird, hence why I'm fine with the length that the current one has. I guess the only way for LEGO to do a bigger Sauron would be a custom mold, like a big fig, and I don't see them doing that, so I'm pretty much fine with the minifig version. Are there better custom ones out there? Sure, but the LEGO version is far from trash, it's pretty good actually. He comes with an awesome face print, great printing on torso and legs, he has a cape and the amazing armor piece that covers his chest, shoulders and head, which I think works perfectly. So as I said, I have to disagree, Sauron is definitely not trash. Continuing with the next hot take from Borint, and he says, hot take, the Tower of Orthanc is better than Barad-dûr. So when I first read this comment, I thought, nah, Barad-dûr is obviously better than Orthanc, but the longer I thought about it, the more I understood this point of view. Minifig-wise, Orthanc is slightly worse, but it holds up pretty well in my opinion. Obviously Barad-dûr comes with Sauron, Sauron's mouth, Gothmog and some other phenomenal orcs, but Orthanc comes with the best Saruman, an amazing Uruk-hai with the white hand, Grima Wormtongue and Gandalf plus his eagle. The Mordor Orc from Orthanc is pretty forgettable, and most of the figures are missing leg printing, but to be fair, Orthanc released 11 years prior to Barad-dûr, where leg printing was not the standard which it is now. On the other hand, I'd argue that Orthanc has the superior interior. It comes with a bunch of rooms that make far more sense than the ones in Barad-dûr, and overall there are quite a couple of scenes that you can recreate, something you can't really do with Barad-dûr since we don't see a lot of it in the movies, and because the interior doesn't really make sense. Another plus point for Orthanc is that Treebird is a part of the set, which adds an opponent, something that always makes the set more interesting and adds to the value, and it ultimately works better in the scale it's built in. Yeah, the tower is still too small compared to the in-universe tower, but it works better with minifigures than Barad-dûr. Overall, I'd still say that Barad-dûr is the superior set when we speak about display models, but I can definitely see why people would prefer Orthanc. That being said, I really hope that LEGO remakes Orthanc in the next couple of years, since the old one is a little outdated and hella expensive on the secondary market. It would just be awesome to get a new one. The third hot take comes from Hesbrix, who says almost every new figure falls short of their original. And at first I thought he has a valid point, but the more I looked into it, the more I had to disagree. Now to be fair, some figures have 100% gotten worse, or at least some newer changes made them look worse in certain areas than their older counterparts. The most prominent minifig that came to my mind is Arwen. Her faceprint in Rivendell looks so much worse than in the Council of Elrond set. Same goes for the hairpiece, which makes her head look pretty wide and rectangular, which is not how Liv Tyler looks in the movies at all. In general, I'd say that any remake of an Elven figure got worse. Even Elrond does not look as good as the old one. Boromir looks way better than the old one in my opinion. A lot of figures are pretty much the same when it comes to overall looks, like Gandalf or Aragorn. And I think it's also worth mentioning that a lot of figures that have had some downgrades in the faceprint or hairpiece area have gotten some phenomenal printing on some skirt pieces or even dual molded legs. Gimli is one of those mixes where I prefer the old beard mold, but I think the beard color, torso print and helmet on the new one are superior. Elrond comes with a nice skirt piece, and I didn't even mention the biggest improvement yet, the hobbits. Every hobbit has dual molded legs now, which looks way better than the old ones. They have some amazing printing on their torsos, and they often come with capes, which is amazing. A lot of orcs have also improved quite significantly, even though you can't really compare them, so I think while some figures have suffered from downgrades, I don't think that most of the figures fall short of their originals. Is every new figure better in every area? No, absolutely not, but I think a lot of figures are better nowadays, and the ones who have suffered from downgrades usually got some improvements as well. The only figure that I think is 100% worse than before is Arwen. The previous one was perfect, and now it's just meh. And I guess Elrond is also worse, because the previous hairpiece with the crown was amazing, but overall it's still a solid minifig. So overall I'd say while some minifigures have gotten worse, most figures are either equal or better than the previous releases, so I have to disagree. The second to last hot take for this video is from Ben Methes F7N, who wrote, the original Haldir would have looked way better with the new Legolas dual molded hair. And I think this is the first hot take that I 100% agree with. Haldir would have definitely looked better with the new hairpiece. As far as I remember, we only see Haldir with the 2 hair streaks laying down over the front of his shoulder and chest, which is not present on the old hairpiece at all, and I also think that the older Haldir figure looks like Legolas cosplaying as Haldir rather than Haldir himself, which obviously looks bad. I also feel like that the newer hairpiece makes the head appear wider and more rectangular, which I think would resemble the likeness to the actor Craig Parker way better than the somewhat slimmer look that the old hairpiece gives off. That being said, the old Haldir is still one of my favorite minifigs, but I do agree that the new hairpiece would severely improve the accuracy and likeness and would overall just look way better. But now let's get to the 5th and last hot take for today's video, and it comes from Chocolate Potato 8966, who says, the new Minas Tirith set is bad because it is minifig compatible scale, unlike the other Lord of the Rings sets. The Shire, Rivendell and Barad-dûr can all have minifigs placed on and around them, but Minas Tirith can't because it's MIDI scale, which means that no matter how good it looks, you can't really display it next to the other Lord of the Rings sets without it looking out of place. Now first of all, I don't think that scale matters as much as people think when it comes to displaying LEGO sets or basically anything. I often mix scales in my display and I don't think that it looks bad. A lot of UCS sets are not nearly the same scale as play sets or MIDI scale sets, but a lot of them can easily be displayed next to each other and still look good. And I also think that a lot of people don't realize how big either Minas Tirith or Barad-dûr really are. People just assume that you can display minifigs with Barad-dûr, and while it's not really minifig scale, it is close enough, but this could not be further from the truth. Now both of these scale images come from Reddit, so I don't know if they are 100% correct, but we can at least say that Barad-dûr is over 3,000 feet tall, some sources even say over 4,000 feet tall, which means it's way bigger than Minas Tirith, and I don't get how so many people think that Barad-dûr is close enough to minifig scale, while it isn't. It is way bigger than most people think it is, and while minifigs look fine when being displayed with the set, it doesn't make any sense scale-wise. I also don't really get why people want to display minifigs in such a massive set so badly, especially not with Minas Tirith. It is a massive city, and when you take a look at some mocks online, you see how big it would need to be minifig scale, and even if you would try to make it in a sort of mixed scale, it would not work at all, because it is a massive city. The mock from this Reddit post isn't even minifig scale, but is still way larger than anything that LEGO would do. And as you can see, even if LEGO were to just make a small portion of the set, it would still be insanely big, but for what reason? I'm way happier with LEGO's approach, where they mix the scale a bit between MIDI and micro scale with a minifig scale interior, so you can still display some minifigs, but overall the city looks still good. I get why people fear the scale difference and don't like it, but for once many of them don't realize how big Barad-dûr actually is, and secondly, I think that if you are not a fan of micro/MIDI scale, Minas Tirith is just not gonna be a LEGO set that you're gonna enjoy, cause there is no other way of doing it. I get that the person making this comment meant a compatible scale and not full minifig scale, but with all due respect, I have to disagree with this take, as I don't think that it's possible. While it's totally fine if people don't like the scale, I don't think that the new Minas Tirith is bad just because of it. But now feel free to let me know your opinion about these takes in the comments down below, and if I was right or just waffling. Thanks to each and every one of you providing your takes for this video, and please do not be offended if I disagreed with you. I wanted controversial opinions, and that's what I got. If you would like to see this series continue, please go ahead and comment your hot take down in the comments below as well, so I can use them in the next video. Now I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would very much appreciate to support the channel. If you don't want to miss any future uploads, go to the subscribe button, and if you want to see more of my videos, they will appear on the end screen right now.